I'm William Gallagher. This is MacNN. One more thing, and we have an important message. Apple is not just for Christmas, it's also for Li-Fi. Hi, William Gallagher here. With me is someone who actually knows what Li-Fi is, or will secretly find out before we ask him, Malcolm Owen. Malcolm, hello.
Hello there.
And Malcolm, it's a month since I spoke to you. Was it something we said?
It's absolutely nothing to do with anything that happened online, but everything to do with being able to get online. I'll explain later.
Oh, tease. Okay. Well, I'm glad it wasn't poitional. Personal. Let's think about this. There is a story out this week, a news story this week, that is corporate, legal, financial, technical, but also just a little bit personal. Apple has just won a historic victory over Samsung. You now cannot buy Samsung phones that you actually couldn't buy yesterday either. There's a new legal ruling. Apple wins completely, but it applies to Samsung phones that have cords and a rotary dial. Perhaps those ones with an operator saying, putting you through. Malcolm, what's the sits with this? And is it a victory or is it just no?
The short version here is back in 2014, Apple and Samsung went at it again in the courtroom over patent infringements. Apple won. They wanted $2.2 billion. They got $120 million. But ignoring that for a moment, they did manage to recently get an injunction against Samsung, basically banning the sale of devices identified as infringing on 3 patents. One which is data detection and linking, one is a slide to unlock patent, and one is to do with autocorrect, which sounds like a big thing because that in theory covers quite a lot of Samsung phones, but it only applies to those identified during the lawsuit, which means that we're talking about things that were released in 2004 and earlier, which therefore means it's phones that's not really getting sold that much anymore in the United States. So we're talking the Galaxy Nexus, Galaxy Note, Note 2, Galaxy S2, S3, Admire, Stratosphere, and basically any variations of those. So it doesn't apply to the Galaxy S4, S5, Note 3, and anything later.
So all of these phones that presumably still use all of these things, Samsung's fine, you carry on.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, Samsung is, well, not really affected by it.
That's what I'm thinking. No. Okay, that seems wrong somehow. But I can't think of the last time a legal case came to an end. Is this an end, or is there yet another round of appeals, and will Samsung... Actually, do you think Samsung will bother appealing this one, or just, yeah, caught us, banged to rights, we deserve the punishment, we won't sell these things if we can find them anymore?
Well, there's 2 ways of looking at it. From a business aspect, Samsung has no real need to fight this, because these are all devices not being sold anymore, so it shouldn't. However, the other way of looking at it is Apple's legal team have basically been fighting this for years, and they've come across what they consider to be basically unending. And it's a decent ending for them, a good one. And that should be celebrated. Samsung's legal team, on the other hand, will sit there and say, well, okay, if they manage to do this for these devices, there's a possibility that they will come out and do something similar, maybe with other patents or whatever, for newer devices. And so Samsung's legal team will be probably treating this quite cautiously in comparison.
I guess, probably stepping away from this because I don't know the details of the legal case, but in general, I find it disappointing the theoretical concept that you can just wait out your opposition until a victory of theirs doesn't matter so much. It's a bit disappointing in a way. But I suppose the important thing is, so you disagree?
I would say it's not really a case of anyone waiting anyone out. Ignoring the whole everyone can basically disagree and go to a higher court, as is the case in basically almost any developed country in the world, the whole problem of it, I think, is the speed. We are talking about the repercussions of a victory in 2014, which in telecommunications terms is an eternity, but in basically any other industry, that's an extremely quick amount of time. So it's less a case of Samsung waiting it out to get a small victory, and more a case of the legal system of the United States being, I'd say, glacial in comparison.
Yeah, you changed my mind about that. That does seem fast when I was thinking of it on the technology timescale, but yeah, if there's a car lawsuit or something, that goes on for a decade usually. That's a thought. You said the legal team at Apple will be happy, legal team at Samsung will be a bit, a little wary, kind of thing. But both legal teams, as long as they're in-house, that's fine. It's just, I'm thinking of all those external lawyers who see all their billable hours suddenly come to an end on this, and I feel for them.
Well, I wouldn't. They'd get a load of money either way.
Well, they've got overheads. The important thing, let's bring this back down to really key personal things. If I happen to own one of these specific old phones, do I have to hand myself into the authorities now?
No. This only applies to devices sold in the United States, and it only applies to new devices being sold. It doesn't apply to existing devices currently in the hands of customers who still have working phones.
Okay, you're answering me seriously there, but I'm also thinking that bit about only sold in the States. I heard Donald Trump this week. I think the man has a point. One more thing, he's going to have to relocate to America. We just no choice, really. I vote for New York myself. While we're discussing this, I've missed this month with you just looking at me like that. Tell me about something newer than 2014. This week, Apple they did this last week, but I think, but they've done it again. There's like this slew of updates to OS 10, iOS, possibly, I don't know, the watch, the TV. What's come out this week, and is it exciting?
Well, on the OS X side, a final version of OS 10. Yes, mother. Yeah, on the OS X side, version 10.11.3, the latest update has, at least according to our report, no noticeable interface changes or new features. It's basically a stability, compatibility, and security update.
Yeah, necessary, good, that's fine. I know we have this thing about OS 10 and OXX, and I call it Windows 10p, and you call it Windows XP, and all that stuff. But there is something wrong about 10.11.3. They're hanging on to OS 10, and I don't know what they go to next, but maybe it's time to let it go. Actually, that's the thought, the 10. We're on OS 9 something now. We're heading up to, isn't this year the year we'll get OS 10? No, excuse me, iOS 10. I'm already confused by that. What was the update to that? Is there anything vital there too, either, if?
This one, again, is primarily intended for bug fixes. So it's iOS 9.2.1. There's rectification of the mobile device management, which does things to do with partial installs and so on, but that's basically about it.
Right, I think we could live without that then, possibly. Yeah.
Although,
funnily enough, I have an advantage on you here because you don't have an iPhone and I do. And well, not accidentally, but I signed up for the beta program ages ago when iOS 9 was coming out, just so I could be ready for MacNN.com's review. In fact, to have really studied it and the changes, all this. And I can't seem to get out of that beta now. So I have iOS 9.3. Get me. It'll be coming down the pipe to normal people very soon. And it does have differences. I actually think there are quite a few subtle things, but there is a big visible difference called nightstand. I mean, it's visible when you switch it on. It's off by default. But it's a really striking and I think horrible change to the phone. Imagine this. It's late at night. You're in bed. You're reading your iPhone. And you've basically got a cold blue screen illuminating your eyes and actually tricking your brain into staying awake. Not anymore. Flip on night shift. So I keep calling it nightstand. Night shift. And your phone will turn, well, Apple calls it a warm orangey yellow. I think it's brown. You can have it, you can adjust various things. The optimum is probably that you have it on all the time, and over the day it slowly segues from this cold blue to this brown thing, and it protects your eyes. I'm sure it does. The moment you switch it on first and you look at the settings and you whack up the slider to see how bad does this get, it is just horrible. So in fact, I keep switching it off. I'm trying to be good. It's on again now. I'm holding on to it, and it's true. If you have it on and it's slowly doing it, you don't notice so much. But horrible. Useful and horrible. I think that's great. And it's coming down the pipe in 9.3. Apparently, if you jailbreak your phones, you may already know this, through an app called f.lux. I don't know what the F stands for, but Apple got rid of them in favour of this. Yeah.
I think the F just stands for we want to make this a cool name, so we'll call it Flux.
With a full stop in the middle.
Yeah.
When will people stop doing this?
When Will.i.am stops using punctuation in the middle of his name.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay. Other things that are coming down the pipe, probably. Apple hasn't announced this yet, but it's been spotted in the code for I don't know which one it was actually, one of this week's new updates. There is a reference to something being Li-Fi compatible. Now, a reference in the code like that usually means something is coming. Occasionally, I am sure Apple just pops these things in the code for a laugh. But if it's real and if it's coming, Malcolm, what is Li-Fi? Or is it Liffy?
Well, actually, this has been in a cache file since 9.1. So it's been there for quite a while. Basically, Li-Fi is a networking system that uses light instead of, in the case of Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, radio waves. So the idea is it's basically a blinking light and a little receiver on, let's say, a side of a device, and another device has got something similar, and they can communicate just by flashing. And this is with visible light, and it's flashing so fast that the human eye cannot perceive it at all.
But it's flashing inside the phone or outside the phone?
Well, all you will see is just a constantly on light. You won't see the flashing at all.
I can see the speed advantage. What are the odds of this coming soon? If it's been in as long as you said, and I've only just noticed it, do you know, the number of hours I spent pouring through Apple code, and I've only just noticed this today. Where was my head? Is it likely to be coming soon, do you think?
Well, companies are working on various ways of using it. I mean, they can get a theoretical throughput of up to 224 gigabit per second, which is stupidly fast. But it does have the major downside of it requires line of sight. So while you can theoretically have a light bulb that's being turned into a Li-Fi router, imagine that for your home networking, a light bulb as a router. But while that could theoretically be set up, because you require line of sight, it means that it's not great for having a long sustained connection like you would expect on Wi-Fi. So it does have that downside. People are still working on it. They've been working on it for quite a few years. There's even been TED Talks about it. There's the possibility of it being used in things where communication is essential, but at the same time not so essential that you need a sustained connection. So things like Internet of Things devices might have some use for it, or things like home cinema equipment.
I've got this vision of a future where streetlights are Li-Fi routers.
Keep that vision to yourself.
Okay, I'll just keep that. Yeah, I'll. Listen, Li-Fi though. I mean, I know we might have Li-Fi coming. We have Wi-Fi. There's no fidelity in it. I mean, it used to be high fidelity. High fidelity, high. In my head there, sorry. It's a lot of years since the Fi meant anything. So high, Y and Li-Fi, it's becoming silly now. What's next?
Good question.
Okay. Li-Fi seems potentially good, but far away. I'm just going to keep my eye on the code like I do every morning. You know, I open up that code and I look in there. I'll keep an eye on that one. We are also apparently very far away from an Apple TV service, and I think, to be honest, we'd kind of guess that. But this week, John Skipper of sports network ESPN says Apple's being frustrated about this whole thing. Now, my mind switched off at the word sports there. It's like sports, games, it's just alien things. Malcolm, you're clever and you like this stuff. Does John Skipper know what he's talking about, and have we learnt anything interesting from him?
Generally speaking, his comments echo those of earlier ones from people like Les Moonves, however you want to pronounce his name, from CBS, where there's discussions between Apple and content providers to be able to offer some sort of cable bundle type thing to Apple TV customers. So at least we can get away with there's some sort of discussions ongoing. But obviously we don't know.
I can't pronounce the CBS guy.
How long it'll be or anything else like that.
Moonves. It's one of those names you read a lot because he's quoted a great deal, but it doesn't need to be interviewed enough for me to sneak in and record him. Actually, I might have a search for that, see if he's ever spoken anywhere, and then I'll just edit in myself pronouncing his name whichever way he pronounces. Leslie Moonves. Leslie Moonves. It'll be seamless. That. Okay. Tell me something else. I know nothing about this, but here's a guy who does.
Hi folks, I'm speaking to you from inside one of the most popular video games in the world. And that is because I'm launching Games London, our first ever mayoral strategy for the video games sector. UK consumer spending on games is almost £4 billion, and the number of games companies in our great city has grown by 1/5 since 2011. We are home to fantastic software studios like State of Play and Sports Interactive, who make world-leading games like Lumino City and Football Manager. From NASA to the NHS, game software now influences the way we manage our health, educate our children, and even how we explore space. But international competition remains fierce, and we need to ensure our city can compete with our global gaming rivals. Games London will be a 3-year programme that will help the games sector shout louder and attract more investment.
That's Boris Johnson, Mayor of London, introducing very dynamically a new sponsorship, a new promotion rather, for the games industry in London. £1.2 million worth of games industry promotion. Malcolm, that is more money than I earn in a week. But I honestly own the games industry. I don't think that sounds like much. Is this actually significant, or is it just some sort of political Donald Trump level soundbite?
Well, just to be clear, they're spending £1.2 million, that's roughly $1.7 million, for something called Games London. So the centrepiece of that will be the London Games Festival that will be held in April, which will include things like EGX Res, which is a kind of trade show for games, the BAFTA Games Awards, there'll be talks at the BFI South Bank and some at House. Training courses will be offered to people to start them into game development, to potentially get them to start their own studios in London and possibly to join EA or whatever studios already operate in London. Basically, it is a very good PR exercise to try and to tell people, oh yeah, come here, you should be able to join the games industry here in London, and investors, why don't you spend money and come here and give us money in London? We like taxes from our bike.
That was spooky. I like that a lot. That's good. Do you do me as well?
No.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll have some games. There'll be London, some money. It'll be over. I think it's still not going to go in my head, is it? It's games.
I mean, the one thing here is it's only 1.2 million, and part of this is coming from part of the funding is coming from tax relief that the games industry has finally got in the UK just as recently as 2014, which film studios get lots of subsidies, tax relief, and everything. They've had it for quite some time, so it's only relatively recently games have managed to receive it. But 1.2 million is, in the games industry as a whole, a drop in the ocean. But also remember that this is 1.2 that's going to be purely for promotion to get people into the industry, as opposed to the really expensive endeavour of actually making a game. So this is not game investment where you'd expect a bigger amount of money needed to do it.
It all happened in 2014, didn't it? Well, okay, so that isn't a great thing, but it's a good thing. Apple TV could be great, but it isn't here yet. Li-Fi could be great, but it's possibly even further off. Nightstand is coming in iOS 9.3, but nah. Samsung phones. Let's move something more positive and active. Let's do Thingies of the week. And actually, just for once, because of what you said a moment ago about having things to say, I want to get mine done and out the way so I can do that thing of propping my elbows on the table and my hands on my chin and just watching you explain this mystery thing. My Thingy of the week, I am absolutely slightly torn. There's a little bit of me that wants to admit to you that it's The Core's new album. Which I've only found because of Apple Music. I quite like The Core stuff, some of it more than others, but I'm really enjoying the new album thanks to Apple Music. But again, you're looking at me. So instead, I'm going to say something I've never mentioned before, ever, to anyone in my life.
OmniFocus is a powerful tool to put everything you need to do in perspective.
OmniFocus, the to-do app that runs my life. I might actually... What, have you heard of this at all?
No, obviously we have never heard of this before. Please, go ahead.
Oh, you're in for a treat now. Actually, I think you are. Ken Case, who's chairman and CEO of the Omni Group, which makes OmniFocus, also the superb Omni Outliner, OmniGraphal, which I still don't fully understand, and OmniPlan, the project management thing, is the first of MacNN.com's developer interviews this week. If you go onto MacNN.com, there'll be Developer Insight. The plan is everybody interviewed for it makes very interesting apps that people are passionate about. So we're finding out more about them. We're going behind the scenes, and in every case, we're getting little tidbits, at least, of what is coming next, which I particularly enjoyed in this one. But also, we're exploiting the fact that these are people who know the business better than most people. I mean, their livelihoods depend on them creating apps that sell. And Ken Case and the Omni Group, they've been in business since 1992. So they've seen huge changes and they've rode quite successfully along all of it. So I found him a really interesting guy to talk to. And the entire interview is now up on MacNN.com. Developer Insights. I so enjoyed doing this one. And actually, I can tell you, I so enjoyed next week's one as well. But let's keep some secrets here. As I ask you instead, what's this mystery? Where have you been for a month?
I would like to blame British Telecom.
Okay, well, off you go.
Okay.
Remember we were talking about legal teams earlier. I think they've probably got some here as well. I'm just thinking.
Okay, before Christmas, our phone line at home, which is quite frankly creaky as heck because rural countryside, South Wales, coastline, high winds, that sort of thing. So we've been having problems with the weather in terms of the wind blowing the phone line and causing crackles on the line, which in turn makes our internet drop. In the last few months, it's been getting worse and worse until just before Christmas, when it dropped out pretty much entirely. I couldn't connect to the internet to do things like work. So within the next 48 hours, I had moved a basic kit of my stuff that I use for my work to a sister's house the next village over, and I've been using her internet. And it's stable, it's fast, it works. But we've also been asking BT, could you come out and fix our line for us, please? And well, that was before Christmas, and I am still in the sister's house.
Okay. Sounds nice there, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is quite nice here. I mean, nice and warm, fairly decent internet. There's a subway across the street, so I can actually get hot food whenever I want. It's quite decent here. But I kind of like the idea of being able to sleep in my own bed. I like the idea of being able to be with the cats that we got at home. I like the idea of playing on the PlayStation 4 and all the other stuff I've got, instead of living out of a suitcase for the last month.
Over on the main MacNN.com podcast, editor Charles Martin is the traveller, isn't he? The gallivanting one. He's forever living out of his kit bag and things. You're just doing a small scale version.
I'm doing an unwilling small-scale version of that. I don't particularly want to be moving around every week like a nomad. I want to... I like structure. I like keeping things the same, at least through my daily life. So having to up sticks and move everything that I have a couple of miles away just so I can do work is just a bit stupid.
But Subway? I'm reaching... Okay, silly question. You said Subway and hot food. Did I misunderstand that? I've only ever had, nice cold sandwiches from there. Do they do things that with heat in them?
I don't know. Subway does do toasted sandwiches, but because, again, rural area, what we have is a single shop that does the Spa, which is a small convenience stores type thing, and inside there is a post office and a Subway.
Oh, I like that. Has it also got Wi-Fi?
No.
No, you see, they let you down, they drag you in, they taunt you, they offer you food and something, whatever the post office still does, but no Wi-Fi. Just evil, really. Okay.
Yes. But yeah, I've basically been waiting for BT to send an engineer out. They've already promised 3 different dates for an engineer to come out and fix it, and 3 different times they failed. The next time they're going to be doing it will be, funnily enough, at the end of this week. So I may still be sat in this same room next week, or I might be back home. I don't know. The really frustrating thing is that we've worked out that the problem is nothing to do with anything inside our house. We've checked with neighbours, and 2 of our neighbours have exactly the same problem. Now, I say have because one of them's actually managed to get an engineer out to climb up the pole and do something and fixed it. For their house alone.
That doesn't seem... That seems quite cheeky in a way. Go on then, since it's you, I'll fix it. Isn't it... am I being daft here? Isn't it... Oh, no, wait a minute. You have a problem at home, and then you go to your neighbours and suddenly they have a problem. Is it actually you?
No, we've asked to get on their Wi-Fi just to check what their connection's like because, hey, I'm a techie person, I know a few things. So, I was able to see that they had the problem, and a couple of days later that I saw, they got fixed. Now, I wouldn't mind, but we complained to BT about this. We complained to BT Internet and BT, and they say, okay, we'll send one of our engineers out. Because of the wonderful structure that we have in the UK, most of the internet is governed through something called OpenReach. OpenReach is BT's subsidiary, if you will, or BT's arm, which does the wholesale trunking and everything. So they deal with the actual hardware of getting the data from A to B. And BT Internet is a service that runs on top of the hardware, much like Sky's services and TalkTalk and a couple of other internet service providers. So we're having to shout at BT's subsidiary for internet, which in turn is shouting at BT's subsidiary for sorting out the hardware. And that one's not pulling their thumbs out of their backsides and actually doing work.
Look, I don't want to, teach grandmother eggs, all that stuff, but even I can see the answer here. You've got your neighbour's Wi-Fi password. Off you go.
No.
Okay.
No, I understand where you're coming from, but it's, given the spacing of the housing, it's a bit too weak. So.
Oh, right. I thought you had a moral objection, but no, you're just thinking...
Oh, no, I have a moral objection, but also because of how BT Internet works, there's something called BT Phone or BT Wi-Fi as a product where you can use other BT customers' Wi-Fi hotspots to connect to the internet. So there's always that as an option. It's just that It's just a bit too far to be able to get a sustainable, decent signal.
Okay. So you're going to be sitting out on the road in between, or sitting in your nice, warm, comfy place where you are now. It's no choice, is it? I hope it gets sorted out, though.
Yes, I hope it does.
Listen, one more thing. There are no more things. Not for this week, anyway. Bet there will be next Thursday, quite possibly including news of this, and every Thursday, hopefully not including more news of this. But while we wait for those, I'm William Gallagher. He's Malcolm Owen. Goodbye from me.
And goodbye from him.